Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm back here. So, yeah, I just want to be honest with you. I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're making the right moves. I think they've really learned to just take off. To just strip away all the bullshit, all the excess stuff, all the artistic and romanticized stuff. And I mean, I'm liking it, especially when you look at looks maxing. With the whole looks maxing community, with the Gen Z and younger, I mean, it's like, hey, you know what? Looks do matter. You know, sex appeal does matter, and starting this stuff at a younger age, it's gonna benefit. It's gonna work to the benefit. Of course, there has to be a process and everything else. And I mean, you look at guys like Clavicular. I think Clavicular's doing a great job. I think he's just, he's getting it done right. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to get a glaze at him or something. No, I'm just saying this because I mean, the guy's, he's making progress. I mean, he's not just making progress. He, you know, he just learned from a very young age. When he was 14, 15 years old, and I mean, I heard about a story how he had to hide his gear from his parents, and that they found it one time and they tossed all his stuff, and he was like freaking out because he couldn't PCT or anything. Obviously, it's a high risk move. And the only people that I really see criticizing him like that are either just like these delusional, just like these delusional Gen Z. Some of the delusional Gen Z. I see a lot of the millennials criticizing the guy. A lot of Gen X dudes criticizing the guy. And obviously, a lot of women are going to criticize it. But you see with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the blue pill is just dying off. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, as a millennial, someone that grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, 2010s, I mean, I'm still here now, so I've gone all the way from that to through the lockdowns, COVID, everything else. You know, I can say that, yeah, the older generations, they have a charm to them. They have a charm to them in that we were actually living in those times, right? If you were living during those time periods and you look at the entirety of it, you look at the fashion, the music, the just the way people interacted with each other, the way people acted and everything, there was a charm to it. It's very charming. It had its aesthetic to it, but honestly, I mean, the trade-off was massive. The trade-off wasn't worth it. Maybe if you were sort of one of those guys, you were just naturally, you're sort of a jock, a Chad. You're one of those, cheerleaders, the Stacy types, whatever. Yeah, you might be able to get through it. You might be able to get through it. But I mean, you know, after just being a guy that's, I mean, I've gone through the looks maxing journey. Mind you, I started at 21, so, I wasn't starting super young like Clavicular was. But, I mean, I started that stuff at 20 young. I was running super, super high cycles, and I've told you guys about what happened to me, when I, made some mistakes and, ended up getting myself in a bad, bad situation that cost me a lot of money for a lot of years. You know, I had my prime and all that, and I've been around with a lot of women. So I know right off the bat, when I see these dudes, there's a difference between taking pictures with women and being a guy that's actually sleeping around with a lot of women and just that's just like, rocking their world. Two completely different things. It's kind of like seeing some like, bodybuilder, super muscular guy that, dresses up like he's military. He's dressing up in like, I don't know, the tight clothing, the trousers, the boots. He's got the all the tactical gear on and the rifle and everything, and he's gripping that thing like a dick or something. I mean, versus someone that's like they're actually like set up for military stuff and all that. You can see the difference. You can clearly see the difference, right? I mean, you notice a difference. Like if you were in the military and you actually experienced this kind of stuff, like you'll know what I'm talking about, right? If you weren't in the military, well, you don't know. The same thing, like as a guy, and I say this not to brag, as a guy, I mean, who has, I've gone through the looks maxing process. I've had, a prime. I've hit some peaks. I've had the valleys, and I've been around with a lot of women, so I know the difference. And to be honest with you, I think this is why, I mean, I honestly, I feel like not only do I relate more with Gen Z, but I actually find that, Gen Z, they're able to just strip away all that bullshit. Like all the bullshit that comes with, the whole romanticized cliche, the whole like just fake image of, the Gen X, millennials, the whole just fakeness of it all. They're stripping it away. And they're revealing something else underneath. And I think that's just, part of it is just because there's access to more stuff on the internet. Even despite all the censorship and everything, there's stuff pouring through. And honestly, I mean, I like this. I think this is a really good step in the right direction. Knock on wood. I mean, just how it is. I don't see this with like, you know, I think that the new generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I mean, I'm seeing more of a waking up. I'm seeing more of just, they've stripped away so much of the crap, and I know that Gen Z, the culture it's stale. It's just kind of flat, kind of dark, dreary, whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, I mean, the alternative is like having to see have seen the shit that I've seen as a millennial, who grew up. I was raised by boomers, lived in a world built by boomers. They were the authority figures, and mind you, a lot of them still are. And you see, you can clearly see their bullshit when you think about it. But that's just about it, guys.